Hello, welcome to Free Spirit Radio today. I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm also excited to have our guest, Alionka Polanko. It will be self-explanatory how amazing she is once you meet her. I actually first met her at Shine Live and she was speaking on stage. And I literally had one of those fangirl moments where I was like, I need to know her. I need to work with her something. And I have had the honor to become her friend. And I'm so excited to share this with you because we're going to dive into abundance and magnetizing your dreams towards you. And there really is no better person or living proof of what is possible in this area. So I'm really excited to have Alionka here. So come on, girl. Come on down. Yay.
Hi.
Okay, there she is. We worked out all the technical difficulties beforehand. So we hope. So yay. I don't know if you knew that about the whole fangirl thing, but hey.
I didn't, but I love it. I'm so glad we're connected, Jaya.
You'll take it.
Yeah.
So welcome. And the first question I always like to ask, because I feel like when you're as amazing as you and you just look so shiny and bright and you have this really beautiful online presence, I feel like it's easy to be like, oh, she was just born that way. And she just naturally, it's just so easy for her. And maybe you have ease. I'm sure you do. But was there a time or like a distinct time that you can share with us about rising? Did you make a conscious decision? This is my time, or like, what's been your experience around really showing up?
Oh, I love, love, love that question, Jaya. And it's interesting because this is coming up a lot for me recently. I'm speaking at an event called Soul Camp later this summer. And that in and of itself is really exciting, but most people don't know that I was a camper the first year that they hosted Soul Camp. So it's like a very full circle experience. That I was asked to speak there. And when we talk about like rising and deciding, I remember when I went there as a camper, I had just finished my coaching certification. I was working 7 part-time jobs trying to build this thing.
Oh my God.
I was just like a hot mess and I was a baby woo. So it's like I was just getting into the woo-woo spiritual realm, but like I had an angel card deck, but I was afraid to open it. Like it was like beginner Alionka.
Yeah.
And I remember after going to that camp, there was a talent show and I had read like a poem and basically cried in front of 150 people. But I just remember coming home from Soul Camp and being like, I'm meant to be on stage. And I know that I'm struggling and I'm just like going to draw a line in the sand right now that I'm not going to struggle like this anymore. And whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I quit all of my jobs. I didn't not have any savings, wow. But I wanted to send a very like clear message to the universe or to God, whoever's up there, that I was ready. That I was like ready to do this. And I did, and I still struggled for a few months, but I had my first like big money month 5 months after making that decision. Wow. And for the 5 months in between, I just freaking hustled, Jaya. Like I was like, I don't have the security of a job and that's okay. I made that decision, right? Yeah. We have a choice. Yeah. But I made that decision for a very clear reason. And it's because I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have my own business. I want to be a coach. I want to be a speaker. And I think the key there is I started acting like the person I wanted to be before I became her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got this image when you're talking about that from having the 7 jobs and seeing it, right? It's that vision, because I know you talk about vision so much. And so you see the vision, but it's almost like you have to jump over this big canyon or something of unknown that's filled with fear and doubt. And yet at the same time, I would pretty much give that advice to anybody and everybody who really wants to dive into like the law of attraction. Like, I think that's the quintessential way to use the law of attraction and where the most power is, because the universe is always watching and listening, right? And responding. And that ultimately was your truth.
Yes. Yes.
And you're just like, I'm going to do it. And so when you see people who are at that place, like before, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to make the jump.
Yeah.
Do you tend to attract people who are at that place? And I don't know, do you have advice or some wise words for them?
Yeah. My wisest words would be that you know yourself better than anyone else. And you can keep listening to what other people say you should do, but at the end of the day, you got to do you. And for me, the right decision was to leave all of those like low. I was working for like $13 an hour at one of those jobs. Like, it was just not for me. It was not my truth. That's not the case for everybody, like some people might want to keep on that's okay. There's no judgment for whatever your truth is, but the only person who knows that is you. And so my wise words here are to like really tap into your intuition, because at the end of the day, it's your life and you're the one who is making the decisions. You're the one who is creating your experience. And so you've got to trust your own gut before anyone else's.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I just talked about this yesterday on a live video. It's like an epidemic of this like 5-step formula. And this is how you do it. And this is how you get there. And it's so easy to think that it is something outside of us that's going to get us there, because it's business. Or maybe, maybe we never thought that way in our life, and you make your choices, who you're going to love or where you're going to move. But it is possible to do that inside your business too, to just follow the cues and follow each step. And so I know that you've grown a lot in your business. So when is the time that you're speaking of, this jump?
This was summer of 2014. So is that 3 years ago? Yeah. Or no, wait. Yeah, summer of 2014.
That's crazy. Alionka, please just take a minute right now and honor that. What? 3 years. That's nothing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Wow.
Thank you for saying that, Jaya, because I do feel really proud of my trajectory. Like, I love myself in that sense. Yeah. But I do think that there is this another epidemic of like growing really, really quickly. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. I've had friends who have done it. I think you grew really quickly, Jaya, but like I didn't. It was like slow and steady wins the mother effing race, But yeah.
Yeah. Slow and steady, but what else?
But right?
aligned and like, I guess what I was thinking is like conviction or dedicate, like commitment.
Yes.
So did you use a larger vision the whole time? Like, what you were going for, was it always this kind of view, or has that really shifted and changed too?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I say that because ultimately I still haven't even hit my big vision. Like, I haven't been on Oprah's couch yet. So I haven't the big thing I'm after. But I do remember at one point when I had sold out my one-on-one coaching practice, and something was still missing, and it hit me, oh shit, like I hit the vision and now it's for a new vision. Right? Because I say that visions are so important because they provide us with a North Star, right? Like, they provide us that, like, vision is the only word I have for it, but they provide us a picture to work towards. Yeah. And being said, like, as human beings, we are forever evolving. And the truth is, like, fulfillment is the journey of growing, and intrinsic in that definition is like the journey, meaning momentum, meaning you have to be moving to feel fulfilled. So I think that vision work is the most important work you can do. And the part that no one talks about is to give yourself permission to let that vision evolve with you.
Yeah, the evolution. I know we were talking about wanting to talk about abundance, and And so you mean, but also then the journey. And so I feel like there's like there's always the dual realities, or probably many, way more than two, right? And so you're journeying and you're going towards this vision, and yet the feeling that you're already there, the feeling that you are that person that could live that, and that you have the abundance, because all of us, let's face it, that's all a part of it, right? We want to have the money, the time, the freedom, the love, all of it. And that's true abundance. So let's dive into incorporating that into your journey when maybe you think it's still far away on some level.
I love that so much because something that I don't know whether people know this or not, but I used to be an actor. So I'm like very in tune with my feelings and very comfortable with feeling things. And I think the quickest way to feel abundance is exactly that. You have to feel the abundance.
Yeah.
So regardless of what's in front of you, it is like an inner feeling. And I think we did this at Shine, but it's like you feel almost like the molecules in your fingers light up, like you feel the energy in your body. Like I feel like I'm getting like hyped up now, and there's a vibration that abundance has. And like the secret of life is that vibration is available to every single person on earth at every single time of your life. Like it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, that vibration is available to you. And if we're talking law of attraction, being in that vibration brings the physical manifestation of abundance to you that much quicker. And I think that was part of my journey, is like I used to feel really bad about where I was in life, and then I started to like be compassionate with myself. And when I learned this trick specifically of like feeling abundant before my life showed it, I get free trips to the Hamptons all the time. There are so many physical ways that shows up when I remember to be here vibrationally speaking. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Law of attraction.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I'm always like a process oriented. So I'm like, let's create some steps to that. And I feel like there's feelings involved, right? So you're talking about the feeling of abundance. So then I kind of ask the question, well, what does that actually feel like in terms of feelings that we normally name? Because then we know how to cultivate those more, or we can take actions. And so I've kind of named 3 feelings that I incorporate with that feeling of abundance, or really I call it high vibe, but it's the same thing of what you just.
What are they?
So they are love, gratitude, and excitement. And I find that, and they're different. They all have different. And so when you're actually in the combination of all of it, you're just like, I love how grateful I am. And that makes me excited, and then that's when you have that elevation of vibration. And so I wonder if you think that way about like the feeling. So how do you kind of dissect, well, that's what it feels like besides it just feeling like abundance?
Yeah. Well, to me, a feeling actually produces a sensation. No. You have sensations in your body, and our mind labels them as feelings, right? So, excitement to me in my chest cavity feels like this, right? Like that's what excited feels like. And so I actually just took an acting class really recently with Marie Forleo's husband.
Yes.
It was so good. And it talks exactly about this. It talks about how like you have sensations, and our human mind has attributed words to those sensations. But at the end of the day, they are sensations. And if you can figure out how to feel comfortable with those sensations, how to increase them, like what sensations produce what mental story, you're kind of winning at life. So I'm very focused in the sensations I feel in in my body. And I said before, Jaya, when we were talking before, sometimes I'll just stop on the street and I'll tell myself like, I feel so abundant. I am so money. And like, that's the word. But the energy, the vibration is like, oh, I feel like little, I feel like little molecules of love surrounding me. And I feel like that can sound very woo. So just to bring it back down to earth for a second, it's just the sensations in your body. And you know when you feel good and you know what doesn't feel good. So I really think our job when we're talking about law of attraction is to feel good. That's the job.
It really is. And so then to go, yes, and then I wonder about the practices, right? Because then I'm also like, I have this crazy ability to be totally woo and totally practical. I'm like a strategy, intuition, melting pot. And right. And so then I'm like, yes. And then what do you do for a practice to create those sensations so you can identify them as the good feelings?
Yeah, there are two things that I do specifically. So I have a playlist of songs that get me like really pumped up, and I just let myself be in the energy of the music, which sounds really woo, but it's really just about like, if it feels good, like lean into how good it feels. Like I am known to like laugh maniacally while I'm dancing because that's the energy and the vibration coming up. Yeah. And then the second one, oh my God, this is such a good story. I manifested Adele tickets in 1 hour. And how I did it, and this is very like step by step, is I had written, I use note cards and I write letters to the universe. And I'm just like, I attend the Adele concert by XYZ date. And this was her last concert, like the one that sold out like 2 minutes in. But I wrote it on a note card, and then I did a meditation. And this meditation was about putting yourself in the experience of it as if it's already happening. So I like pictured me at the concert, and then I pictured me hugging her, and I pictured me meeting her, and actually being in the moment. I was sobbing, right? Like literally sobbing in the vision of it, right? In the meditation of it, but also in real life, I was sobbing with gratitude. And when I finished this meditation, the night before, I had been scouring Craigslist and Facebook trying to get tickets, and I got one offer. It was like $3,000 a ticket. But when I finished that meditation, I had a message from someone, a single mom of 2, who was supposed to like come to New York with a friend. And she said, hey, I'm not trying to rip anyone off. I just want the full price for the tickets. And I have 2 of them for this one date. It was the only, she was playing in New York 6 dates. I could only go to 2 of them. And this woman had tickets for the one of those dates that I was here. Just like instant. And that the feeling was there. Like my hand is going crazy, but it's like, there is a very literal vibration that you can tap into. And I think we did this at Shine Live Dry. I don't know if you remember, but I started off my speech saying, how would it feel if you made 10K a month? And I made everyone stand up and actually make the noise and move their body in the energy of that 10K.
Yeah. Oh, it's so powerful. And how was the show?
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't. Well, it was the night before Shine Live. That's the reason I could only go to 2 of the shows, because it was the week of Shine Live. I
can't believe you didn't tell that on stage.
I was still processing it. Now it's like 6 months or, oh my God, nearly a year. Yeah. So now I know the story, but in the moment I was still like on cloud 9 and I couldn't break it down so easily.
Yeah. That is, oh my goodness, it's so amazing. Something when you were talking about that and you're like, okay, that seems like that was easy for you to just put that much focus. Because let's be honest, when we're really visioning like that and getting into the feeling, it takes a lot of focus. It's all focus. That's what that's what I call it. But, and that's how I sort of like call myself on it, right? I'm like, what are you focusing on? What do you want? What are you focusing on?
Exactly. I think that's question. It's like, what do you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
I ask myself that at least 3 or 4 times a day. Anytime I start to veer off, I'm like, but what do you want, Jaya? What do you want? And then I get right back. And it
Yeah.
keeps me, I think that's why I have had fast results, because it's not for lack of focus.
Yeah. Well, because when you focus on something, you're bringing it to you, right? That's how you're magnetizing it. And so I think like the secret of life and the world is that it like radical results don't have to take very long. It's more about like how quickly can you tap
Yes.
into the focus, how quickly can you get in alignment, and how quickly can you get excited about
Yeah.
it as if it's already happened. And if
Yep.
you do that, I think that's the work,
It
actually.
is, but it isn't. It sounds so simple as you say it, but it isn't as easy, because you know what? If you're hungry, it's hard to focus. If you don't feel good in your body, sometimes that can be hard to focus. If you're having relationship issues, that can be hard to focus. And so it really is about alignment in all these categories of your life that then create this, I call it like a target. I feel like I have a target and I'm like taking aim. But everything has to be cleared out of the way to have that clear target. So,
I agree with that, and I
yeah.
have there's a quote that says, "We are divine beings having a human experience," and
Mm,
this is going super woo, but I think your people are into that, so I'm just gonna go
yeah.
with.
Do it.
Sometimes I have had times where my life feels messy. I was just telling you this morning. Today,
Yeah.
my personal life feels messy, um, and the I first heard that quote 3 summers ago was very transformational for me. But I can now separate like the divine being within and
Mm,
human experience that I'm having, because hunger is a human experience, right?
yeah.
Pain, suffering is a human experience, and not that that means we should dismiss it. You got to take care of your
Mhm.
shit because you are a human.
Yeah.
But this divine being is always it's always with you. And
Mm,
I listen to Law of Attraction, like Abraham Hicks, all of the time, and that's they call it source energy. Some
mm,
people call it God. Whatever it is for you, um, that is always available to you,
mhm. It's so
right?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so true. And then I love that you're separating it like the human experience. And so I don't know if it's me because I'm highly sensitive. And so my human experience feels really fucking real? So I mean,
Yeah.
so like hunger for me, like it kind of is a big deal. And I see other people, they can work all day and it doesn't matter that they got hungry and they can still. So maybe that is more of like a personal thing. And it's not at all that everything has to be perfect, because it's not. I think I personally need to have the ability to put it to the side. So imagine I'm having like a fight with my husband. I still definitely go focus on my business that day. Right.
Yeah.
But it's this like, but that's because I've worked it out with myself, not to take it personal. I know how to, and so it still is this work to like get it out so that you can keep that source energy and store it in some area without it getting all piled with everybody else's crap.
Well, what kind of stands out to me about what you just said, Jai, is you're really good about boundaries. Like you know what you
Mhm.
need to succeed, and
Yes.
so make sure like that you make sure to get what you need. You make sure that you are set up for success. Is that accurate?
No, totally. It's so true. And I've been coming up, I'm launching my high vibe zone. And so I've been coming up with this kind of manifesto of like, what does it really take to live this way? Because when you teach this to other people, you need all these different ways to talk about it. So, everyone has their different way of learning. And so I was thinking like, what are the guidelines of this? And that is really one of the first ones. When I had my huge spiritual awakening, it was 12 years ago. And it began with the question, what are your requirements?
Oof.
And it rocked my fucking world. Like a divorce later, a move, a career change, it really stirred the pot for me. And so that is not a light question. And being able to ask for your needs and really own it, it dives into self-worth and self-love and self-talk, all of it. It's huge.
Wow. I love that question. Like full body chills.
Yeah.
I am available to that. Like I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
what are your
What
requirements?
are they? What are they? Because it's so powerful, right? It's beyond needs. Because needs, I feel like we can almost be like, but I need it. It's just it's a little bit less powerful. And
Yeah.
requirements, have a built-in meaning that there will be a consequence.
Yeah. Oh, I
Right?
love that, Jaya.
Yeah, girl. It's seriously, I feel like I could just drop that and be like, okay, mic drop. Like, I don't ever have to do another live video because that is the truth of it.
Your work in this world is complete. No,
Yeah.
that is really, really powerful.
It really is, but you're right. And so I think we all have our different process. Like maybe somebody has that where they didn't have to think about that as much. It depends on how you grew up and how were you taught about your needs? How were you taught how valuable your requirements are? And so it's not everybody's work, but it was mine. And so I think that's why I look at it that way.
I love that so much. You're reminding me just of a client I spoke to years ago, and she was so clearly able to like advocate for her needs. And it was never pushy. It was never like an insult. It was just like, this actually works better for me, XYZ. And that to me was such a learning experience, because I was like, oh, that's a beautiful way to behave. I want to be.
Yeah.
So thank you for reminding me of that. It's really awesome.
It is. And then I think also it really does trigger people. You know, not everyone wants you to have really good boundaries, and specifically people who don't really have good boundaries themselves. And it's going to trigger that in people. And that's why it's powerful, right? Like that's why it literally takes power. It takes that deep confidence and inner knowing that you're worthy of having that. And then it's not personal if it triggers someone else.
I'm curious, it does trigger people. I'm curious for you, Jaya, how has that impacted your level of abundance? Am I allowed to ask questions?
Of course, you are not allowed. Of course you are. So ask that again.
So you just told us about your self-worth and being like so deeply rooted in confidence and in being able to speak to your requirements.
Yeah.
And I always think like self-worth and money worth, they work hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. I think it would help the people listening. Like, so you've had this self-worth discussion with yourself. How has that led to like money worth and abundance in your life?
No, that's such a good question. And I like, again, I dissect things. So I feel there are 4 pillars of different things to focus on. And personally, I've found that I need to kind of literally separate them and work on them individually. And then they flow together better. But when you initially, and you're like, this has been ignored, then I find it needs a lot of focus. So I look at it as self, health, wealth, and spirit. And self is relationships, any relationship, right? Because it's all that mirroring. So I started with self, and so it did not affect my abundance or money at all, because I wasn't focusing on that. I was literally just focusing on marriage. I mean, that's what brought it up for me. And then I worked on relationships for 5 years. I manifested my husband. Literally, I did all the things. I was like envisioning what it was going to feel like in the morning with him, like all of it. And I manifested him, and he's here, and like, it's him. And I'm like, oh, I love you so much. It's amazing. And yet I was at the time making $30,000 a year and like totally fine with it. So it wasn't even a week. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like some people come here and they're going to work on all of those things and master all of those things, if you will. Self, health, wealth, and spirit. And some people are going to just touch on one, and some are going to touch on none. Yeah. And they're going to be, unhealthy and not tapped in and poor. I don't know, I mean, it's just, I think that's how we can look at it kind of too, where it's like, it's not that they're bad or they're wrong. It's just a different path, and it's how much we're going to get to tackle in this life, you know?
Totally.
So it wasn't until I actually really looked at wealth, I was like, on purpose, that's when it adjusted. And then it adjusted quickly because I knew how to focus on it. And it was what do I want?
That process from the other pillars and brought them into wealth. I think that's so brilliant too, Jaya, because I feel like entrepreneurship is the greatest lesson in development you could ever. And there's so much inner work and personal work that has to get done when you're on this ride, especially. Like, you can't hide from it, right? If we talk about people who aren't awake, like, no judgment to them, but I think part of the reason I'm so awake is because of entrepreneurship. And what you just said, I think, is just, I want to highlight it because it's like, you did take care of yourself, your relationships, your health, but like, and then the wealth came, and that was even easier because you'd already been through the personal journey of implementing that.
Yeah, and I do think it is a process, like the process that you talked about when you're talking about manifesting those Adele tickets. Like, you literally could, like, you know, patent that shit. It's like, that was a process that you went through. And ultimately, it really all is. Nobody's reinventing the wheel. It's not like, well, now like Jaya has the answer or Alionka has the answer. You have a perspective and you have a voice, right? You have a specific voice. Nobody else has that, along with all the experiences and way that you show up in the world. And that's like, and I think that's why we come back to that. That's how that's the entrepreneur journey, right? It's like owning that like you have all of that in you. It's really good. So I am money. I am money. Like, I just think I can't even do it like you. Like, I feel like you need like a 2-snap kind of thing. I am money. That'll be our mantra for today.
I love
that. I do feel like ultimately it all works together, but I do also see a lot of entrepreneurs, specifically online, including myself, who take their business online and then gain 20 pounds.
Totally.
Right? You're just like, and that's because, sorry, but I'm not focusing on that because I'm focusing on this other thing. And then we get judgmental and think we're failing at everything because one area is falling, and we miss that this whole other area just started flourishing. So I think it's really important to see it as separate from you, that any of it doesn't equal you ultimately, but also that it's like your choice, what you're going to be focusing on and what you think is successful.
I love that. I love that too. And I like to talk what is specific to that about having compassion for yourself. And like my friend Anna uses this phrase, but like, how can you mama yourself? Like, how can you mama yourself? Because I do think your confidence is like, when you don't have confidence, everything else fails. And my experience has been, on the outside, I think people probably thought I had a confidence, but my inner voices number one reason that I didn't have confidence. And when I finally started to learn how not to tame those, but actually to have a conversation with them and to like have a real talk with myself, and then start to transform that into self-love at all parts of the journey, I think that things started to shift. And I just told a friend, I just started focusing on my health because same thing, I totally gained weight when I just started my business, period, 3 years ago. But we were talking about it. I was like, I'm really gung-ho about this detox that I'm doing, and I'm following through, and it's actually really easy. And she reflected to me, well, you focused on your business and you got to this level that you really wanted to achieve, and now you have space to focus on the health, and that was just your journey. And I was like, girl, you're so right.
Yeah, totally, because it is the focus. So do you feel like, I kind of had this question in the back of my mind for you, and it kind of originated when you were talking about the Adele tickets, because that was so easy for you to manifest. Do you feel like there's somewhere that isn't as easy to manifest? Like, and you're just like, that feels so much harder for some reason?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. It's like, I feel like
I don't know.
I'm like, okay, while I'm thinking about it, I just think that the reason it's even hard to answer that is because I'm so focused on my strengths. I do not even think about my weaknesses. Now I start hiring for my weaknesses, but even when I was solopreneur, I just didn't. At some point, I learned that building my weaknesses did not garner as many results as like
I love that.
recognizing my strengths.
Maybe I should rephrase it, because I totally agree with you, and I don't either. Like, I spend like zero time thinking about my weaknesses, but let's be honest, we get resistance and we meet our own edge, right? And so we meet that edge and we realize that like that's a growth opportunity. So I'll just rephrase it in that way. Of course, it's about growing. It's not about focusing on it like, oh shit, now I can't do it. But do you have a specific growth edge that you're working on right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. My growth edge right now, like what I'm working on, is boundaries. And I love that that came up in our conversation. That's why, like, what are your requirements really was like, oh, I answer that. Because I do think on some level, I'm like such a sweet person. And I just watched this Brene Brown video on boundaries, and she talks about how like I'm no longer such a sweet person, but I'm far more loving. And that just like, oh,
so it's true.
I have a history of knowing my needs, but not being able to speak to them and not being able to advocate for them. And what I started to learn, am I allowed to get real and transparent here?
Please.
What I started to learn is I started to put up all these walls so as not to have to get into situations where I knew I would fail, right? Or let me rephrase that. Situations where I would fail to express my boundary. And so wall went up. No, I can't get coffee. No, I can't meet online. No, I can't do this. No, I can't. And I found myself walled in. And I just realized, like, that's no way to live. Like, I think the human experience with its ups and downs is like the greatest thing my soul could have ever decided for itself. And when I realized that I was super walled in, I did have to look at the process of like, okay, why is it so much easier to put up a wall than to simply say no? And why is it so much easier to put up a wall than to say, that's not okay for me, or that's not okay by me? And so that has been my growing edge just in the last 2 weeks, especially since the last full moon. That just and I think, and I'm still working on that.
I think that thank you so much for sharing that openly. And I know that it can be so hard to share our vulnerability, but it's the most powerful thing, because I know that there are so many women who feel exactly that same way and have such a hard time saying no. And it impacts your life on a really big or deep level, or both, right? So, I mean, I feel like you're saying that you're in that process right now and in that journey. So, I'm sure that you'll share along the way, but I hope you do, because I feel like sometimes we forget that how powerful our own journey is. And ultimately, like that's what we share. I mean, that's what you teach, right? You show up for people in ways that you've shown up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, like, I don't remember who said this. Maybe it was Gandhi, but like, my life is my message. And I think that so specifically, or maybe especially in the coaching realm, in the speaker realm, in the like personality realm, right? Like, I think I'm even though I'm not like a TV personality, I'm like an online personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I love what you just said, because I think I do a decent job of sharing when I feel safe being vulnerable. And then there's also times where I'm like, this feels really messy, and I think I need to clean it up a little bit and understand my process before I can deliver that as a deliverable,
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I did just do a live stream recently. I was in a launch for my mastermind, and I had like sent out 4 emails in one day, and someone wrote back like, can you ease up on the emails? And I remember I wrote back to her, no, I'm in a launch, but there's an unsubscribe button, and I totally understand if that's what you want to do. but it was very easy to have that boundary, but I realized like 24 hours later it was still affecting me. Like I was totally still I didn't send out one email that I had planned to send out. It was just eating at me. And so I made a live that day just to say, like, I'm in this right now. And usually I would wait like a week before I share something, but I wanted to be in this moment with you because I feel very tender about it. And I think that's something that we see, like, shiny people online. And I know this from when I used to work with like CEOs of companies, not just like entrepreneurs, but like everyone is tender on some level. And I think when we get to share that tenderness, it brings us closer together. And two, I think it shows you what's possible. Like it's possible to run this huge business and not have boundaries yet. That's my truth right now. You know what I mean? So thank you for setting the stage for that.
Oh, it is. It's amazing. And you said something to the effect of the entrepreneur journey is the biggest lesson, or, you know, what did you say? Something like that.
Biggest lesson in personal development.
I mean, and it's so true. And specifically when you're running a business that has everything to do with your passions and your you know, soul-driven mission, right? You're like, oh my goodness. So in that flavor, I always like to ask a question to kind of wrap things up. And I'm curious for you, because you do have that beautiful online personality and that actress. I mean, you're so shiny. And in fact, I met your friend. I met a friend of yours, and she was like, I said something about you being shiny, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. You know, it's just so true. And I know you affect people a lot, and you purposely do. You put yourself out there and you show up, and you're doing this thing, this big life thing. And if you just had like one way to describe how you really want to impact people, you know, you leave a room, you leave this interview, you leave this world, like, what are you leaving behind?
My core message, like the one, like when I'm on Oprah's couch, this is what I hope to be speaking to, is I will get teary-eyed.
Yeah.
It's really, really a miracle that you're here. Like 1 in 400 million chances that you were born to your parents in this time and space. And my big message is like, if you are a miracle, I don't know what that was. If you really sit into how much of a miracle you really are, you would be doing so much more, like doing bigger things, because you weren't put here by accident. I'm like getting itchy. This is like my life's message is like, you are a miracle. Start behaving like one.
Yes. Oh,
tears, sweat.
Guys, how good is that? It's so good. Yes, you definitely need to be saying that on Oprah's couch. Who do I call? What do we need to do? Because yes, so much yes. You are, and I feel like you're such an example of that living miracle, where you're saying, yeah, I'm owning this. I'm owning that I'm a miracle, and I'm stepping into that and showing the world your gift. Thank you so much for that, for doing the work that you do, for showing up in such a beautiful way and reminding us all that we are miracles. And also just thank you for doing this with me today.
Thank you for having me, Jaya. Mwah. Love you. Love your people. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye. See you next time on Free Spirit Radio.